and welcome back to Printed. I'm your host, Vanessa Gomez, and we're back with our department series. This time, talking with someone who works at one of the big five publishers. She is Stephanie Sinclair, publisher of McClelland and Stewart, and she will be joining us to talk about the editorial department. As always, we will be talking with her about the editorial department in general, but we will also ask her about a specific career advice for those who want to get into this department. Plus, we will also talk with her about how internships work at Penguin Random House Canada. But before we dive in, don't forget to follow and subscribe to the podcast. We have some amazing guests lined up for you for this season that you do not want to miss. So, without further ado, let's get into it. In today's episode, we will be talking with someone who works for one of the big five publishers, specifically as a publisher for McClelland and Stewart. She is Cree, Ojibwe, and a German Jewish settler. She has worked for more than 20 years in the performing and creative arts. From 2012 to 2022, in literary management specifically, she began her work at the Transatlantic Agency and also helped manage the translation rights program for both Page Two Books and Journal Quarterly. Her authors have been acknowledged by virtually every award jury in the country, including the Scotiabank Giller Prize, the Griffin Poetry Prize, and the Governor General Award, just to name a few. In 2020, she joined Cook McDermott Literary Management, and now she works at Penguin Random House Canada. Please, everyone, welcome Stephanie Sinclair to Printed. Hi, Stephanie, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready. Yes.
Perfect. So, to warm things up, I always like to start with a section that is called the What Are You section. So, Stephanie, what are you currently reading, listening to, and watching? It doesn't have to do with books, it can be any series that you like watching or any music that you like listening to at the moment.
Okay. I am reading about four different things.
Mhm. That's great.
One is a submission that we haven't yet bought, but that I hope to buy. The other is Sharon Balla's new book called Good Guys, which we're publishing next month. I'm watching Love is Blind. Yep. I feel like I read literary and I watch more commercial leaning stuff. And my kids and I have been listening to Christmas carols pretty much nonstop the whole week. Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice, especially for this season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, from my side, I've been reading, I'm actually not reading anything. I just finished reading Heart the Lover by Lily King. And then I just bought Letters to Kafka. So I'm hoping to start reading that one. I've been listening to Brimstone by Collie Hart, which is a fantasy book for any, fantasy lovers out there. It's really good. And then I've been watching, as you, I also watch very commercial things. I've been watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, which is very
Oh,
reality
nice.
TV, but it's very on brand for right now.
Yeah.
So now let's begin. Can we start talking a little bit more about how did you get started in your career, and specifically, like, how did you end up like working at one of the big five, which is Penguin Random House?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I guess I've always been a storyteller. I started in dance and then moved into theater and then worked with playwrights. From there, I did a writing program, but wrote absolutely nothing. I spent the entire time editing. So then I went to publishing school and then got hired at Transatlantic Literary Agency, which is where I started. After about 11 years there, I moved over to Cook McDermott. Um, and from there, I got recruited actually to take the post here as publisher of McClelland and Stewart. And I think it was when I was offered the job that someone said to me that I'd sold basically 30 books to McClelland and Stewart over 6 years. So it was very clear that like my agent list was largely aligned with the M&S list, and that in fact, like I think it was already in my DNA in a sense.
Hmm. Oh, that's great. Especially, I have heard from so many people you have kind of like those happy accidents in publishing, like you know someone who knows someone, or you end up, having kind of like that aligned with all your titles that you've sold to one specific house. So yeah, that's such an incredible start in the industry. And as you mentioned, you're the publisher of McClelland and Stewart. And I think for many people out there, they really don't know what the publisher does in a publishing house. So can you describe a little bit for us, like what are your daily tasks and what is it that you take care of?
Yeah. I mean, the exciting thing is no day is ever the same. So it's basically, I mean, I think my job is largely in service of the editors. So at M&S, I have a team of 12 editors who all acquire and manage their own lists. And so I am there to like help them largely, and then also to make sure that everyone's list is cumulatively coming together in a way that makes sense. So we want to make sure that we've got a balanced list for every season, that we don't have any books that are going to cannibalize on each other. So it's both making sure that we're buying the right books, that we're marketing and publicizing those books in the right way, that we're publishing them at the right time and to the right people. So then also making sure that every book has the right frame around it, that every author feels supported, and then really like advocating for the wider brand identity that is McClelland and Stewart. So it also then means looking back as well, because M&S is almost 120 years old. So looking at the back list and trying to figure out, okay, what books deserve a second life? Do we have any creative ideas about what we can do differently? Talking to booksellers. So also traveling. I go to all the book festivals. I go to a lot of events. I meet a lot of writers and agents constantly for lunches and conversations. Um, and editing too. I also edit my own list.
That's a huge like daily task or task in general that you take care of. And we've heard this reminded me of, we've heard since in this season we've talked to mainly people that have worked in a small presses, and they say because we have all these tasks that we're always taking care of, our people usually wear many hats. But that happens in the presses. I'm wondering, in big presses like McClelland Stewart, does that happen a lot? Like people wear many different hats, or is it more like a department division?
I'd say a bit of both. I mean, there's definitely different divisions and some silos between those divisions, but everyone is also doing many, many, many things. I think in part because it's publishing, so it does feel like sort of firm. Everyone's publishing a lot of books, and so the editors, I think, are now really sort of leaning into being a part of the active marketing and publicity strategy as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think in Canada, I've noticed that even the big presses kind of also work as small presses. So there's also kind of like that collaboration environment, which is really nice, especially when it comes to publishing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. And now that I want to go back to a point that you mentioned, that, as you said, you work with all the editors in McClelland and Stewart. So I'm guessing you have a pretty kind of like clear idea of what skills a good editor needs when it comes to, editing books, acquiring books. For people who want to be editors in the future, what are the skills that you said, these are the top 5 skills that you will need if you want to work as an editor?
I think the number one important skill is that you need to be a good listener. Um, I think you have to be able to like listen to what a writer is saying, both on the page and in conversation. And the hardest job is of an editor, I think, is really just to ask the right questions, and to be able to prompt the writer to really help them to like realize their intentions for a book, to help it become the best version of itself. The other thing I would say is you have to be a really critical reader. Uh, and you have to be a very good communicator. That's a big one. And multitask. I think you have to be able to wear different hats. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've heard from so many people, if you can demonstrate that you have like that time management and you know how to handle different projects at the same time, pretty much that's what you need in every single department, because you are working with so many books and so many things at the same time that you need to keep everything in line and track
Yeah.
everything. So what you're saying, it completely makes sense. And since there are many people that want to acquire those skills that you just mentioned, what are some things that they can do to kind of like, if they have them, strengthen it, if they don't have them, kind of acquire them, even if it's not through like a specific like publishing certificate, maybe through like work or even in their personal time?
Yeah. I mean, I think going to local events, like going to your local independent bookstore and seeing what events are happening, joining book clubs is good too, because it's a very like centralized way where you can talk critically about books, and even just being able to talk about what you've just read, I think is a really important skill. And then also just like talking to writers, and learning how to have those conversations really, really sensitively and with a lot of care.
And something that I've also heard from many people that want to join the industry is, hey, I'm very worried about I don't have a network inside the industry. Is it going to even be possible to get into the industry without the network? What's your perspective on that? And will you encourage people who want to join the industry to kind of like take the jump and like just start networking with people inside the industry?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone has to start somewhere, right? And even if you don't have the network immediately, you can build it from any place. You can reach out to people, you can start to get to know people. Again, like starting with your local booksellers, getting to know some writers, getting to know the agents. Like we're all accessible, right? So just reaching out and starting to build your own relationships goes a really long way.
That's great. And I think that's going to give so much hope to people out there that are
Oh,
like,
I hope
you
so.
know, I don't know anyone. Something that I've really found out is that when you reach out to people, especially in publishing, they really want to talk to you. Like
Yeah.
people are willing to like give their time and talk to you and like share that knowledge. So if you're out there and you're feeling discouraged, please don't. Please reach out to people. Most people, if not everyone, they are kind and they're so knowledgeable and they are willing to share. So don't feel discouraged. Yeah.
Internship opportunities too, that like
Mhm.
certainly at Penguin Random House, twice a year they post for internship applications, and
Mhm.
that's for like all the editorial posts. There's also
Yeah.
for sales and marketing and
Mhm.
design and publicity. So there's also, you can, like, there are starting places like that where you don't need to know anybody or have any experience. It's
Absolutely.
really just a matter of like expressing like a really passionate desire to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've heard with so many people, especially with internships, that we'll talk about in a moment, is that something that they're really looking for is like people who have like a real passion for books, but also for the industry. And they are willing to show that when they're on the job. Sometimes it's not about the long work experience that you have, but showing that passion and that you're willing to learn and that you're willing to show up. That's also very important. And I'm wondering, as you're the first person that I'm talking to that works in a big house, sometimes people online don't know how big houses work. And I'm wondering, what's the biggest kind of like misunderstanding or misconception that you've heard that people have about like working in a big house or in a larger print?
Oh, there are a lot of them.
I
I
bet.
would say the biggest one, I think, is that because we're part of Penguin Random House Canada, that we don't actually have our own publishing identity. And the way Penguin Random House Canada works is it's kind of like an umbrella organization, and underneath there are six different imprints or divisions. So, like Doubleday has its very own list, and they make their own publishing choices. Penguin does the same, Random House does the same, Knopf does the same, and so does McClelland Stewart. So we are all actually separate business divisions. We just like fold back into Penguin Random House Canada. And I would say like the second large myth that I think is really a huge challenge for people is that big is always better. And I don't think that's the case. I think there are certain books that are definitely better served by a larger house. And there are also absolutely many books that are better served on a smaller house. So, it really just depends on the book and the writer.
Oh yeah. No, that's a great perspective. And I think that's going to help people. Sometimes I feel like our industry is so mysterious still, like people don't know what happens inside houses. So kind of like getting to know also like how the big houses work is going to help them a lot. And now I want to move kind of into a section for more advice for young professionals that want to join the industry, especially in this moment that we're recording is actually internship season. As you said, is when the internship posts have already gone out. They're already in like interviewing process. So for those people that want to go into the next cohort of internships or even entry level jobs, the first question that I have is, especially if they want to work in editorial at McClelland and Stewart, is in cover letters, in their resumes, what should they focus on? What should they like kind of demonstrate a passion for?
I actually ask the person who helps me run the internship applications to only send me the cover letters without the CVs. I'm more interested in the stories people tell about themselves than I am in their experience, because I think there are many people who can have years and years of experience, and it's actually harder to undo some of the like bad training that they've got than to hire someone who's really excited about publishing, who has no experience and can be taught. So for me, the resume is always less interesting. It's really about like the story. why you want to be a part of publishing, what you love to read, getting to know who you're applying for. So if you're applying to work with a certain agent, know who's on their list. If you're applying for a certain publishing house, know what they publish. So paying attention to the details, and also just being yourself and saying something distinct. One of the people who we've hired wrote in her cover letter about how she first sort of considered herself a storyteller when she was making mixtapes for her friends
Oh
and was
wow.
thinking about
Mhm.
like the narrative
Mhm.
around it, and I just loved it. I thought it was just such a fun detail, so I
Yeah.
think just being really distinct.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes people are so afraid of being unique, like, oh no, I should only focus on like my work experience, my educational experience, but actually showing your personality is actually what is going to get you sometimes to the next step. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And if candidates are, lucky enough, they nail that cover letter, they nail that resume application. If they're lucky enough to get an interview, especially when it comes to, McClelland Stewart, how should they prepare for their interview? Is it true what you said, like look for the list, look for what we publish, kind of have a voice to talk about that and why are you excited about that? Or what else should they focus on?
Yeah, I think getting to know the list is a very, very big one.
Hmm.
And then also being able to speak to working with other people, and that doesn't need to be in publishing. That can be, on your high school yearbook committee. It can be from, a retail job, but just like demonstrating that you're collegial and collaborative is for us probably the biggest thing. I think M&S, like we're known to have a particularly kind team, and we want to keep it that way. So we want to make sure that we're working with people who are also like really interested in connecting, and in being a part of a community.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people don't realize that pushing is so much about collaborating with other people around you. Even if, like, you're working in a certain department, you're going to have to collaborate with so many people around you that having those skills of connecting with people, they are very important and crucial for your everyday, really.
Yeah,
Hmm. And, if I'm wondering, especially for editorial, is it important that candidates submit a portfolio? Does that have any weight? And if it does, is there anything in particular that they should submit in there? Or is it more like about that resume cover letter, especially?
it's more about the cover letter and the resume.
Hmm.
We don't ask for any sample edits. Generally speaking, I think a lot of people have varying degrees of editorial experience from school or from their like
Yeah.
local newspapers
Hmm.
and magazines to freelancing.
Hmm.
And so we just trust people have the experience they say that they do.
Okay, yeah, that I think so many people are going to be relieved because especially when I've talked with people about like, I don't know what to put in my portfolio, and sometimes it's stressed out so much about their portfolio more than their cover letters and their resumes. It's like you can actually just focus on telling your story on a good cover letter and you're gonna be okay. That's gonna translate more than anything else that you can include in your portfolio.
Absolutely.
And another question that people have, like a lot of the time, especially for big processes, how competitive are those entry level jobs? How competitive are those internships? I think I know the answer, but I would like you to kind of like explain it to the audience, especially for, McLeod Stewart specifically.
It's pretty competitive. I would say, I think the last internship application we had about 400
Oh,
applications.
yeah, that's a lot. Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And then we interviewed six, so it is a lot. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's very competitive.
yeah.
And should people, especially for the internships, people sometimes wonder, although I know this is in the job posting, but to clarify it for them, are these internships full time? Are these internships part time? And if you could talk a little bit more about, if you're lucky enough to get hired into an internship specifically, how does that experience look like inside your house?
Yeah. The Penguin Random House internships are 6 months long, full time, paid with benefits. Um, so you come in, you get set up with a computer, a company computer. You are expected to be in the office 3 days a week, and then you get the chance to sort of meet people from all the different facets of publishing. So you're working closely within the team you're hired into, but then you also get to go get to know the designers and production and all the different editorial groups as well. So it really exposes you to like the full range of what publishing looks like and gets you to like be more deeply familiar with the life cycle of a book. so you can see things, come in and go through the various processes before they actually hit the bookstore.
Absolutely, yeah. That makes so much sense. And that kind of creates such a complete program for internships. And I bet that's how Penguin Random House designed it. Because, sometimes people get into editorial, but they actually end up, connecting maybe with marketing and end up
Yeah,
like looking like, oh no, I actually like marketing more. And that happens so much at the beginning of your publishing career because, you kind of want to give everything a try and see, where
yeah.
you end up. And sometimes you have more skills in one department than the other. So yeah, I think that's amazing. So for anyone wondering, this is how the internships works, especially at Penguin Random House. And the last thing that I want to ask to close up, like kind of this advice section for like young publishing professionals, is as you mentioned, the last person that you hired, she had like kind of that memorable detail of when she started being a storyteller. Is there any other kind of memorable detail that you've seen in an application that you remember you were like, oh, I want to talk to this person definitely?
I think someone who is sort of aware of the social causes that are important to M&S, like thinking like both, yes, about the list specifically, but then also about the wider messaging that we try to set forward. So someone who's just like really paying attention. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, well, it is time for a fun break because I've been asking you questions for a long time. So we're going to do our literary rapid fire quiz. So, what's your favorite book genre?
Literary fiction.
Great. What's your go-to author
Oh gosh, I don't know if I'm allowed to answer that.
or the current
Published.
one?
Michael Christie.
Okay, perfect. What's your preferred reading snack if you have one?
Mixed nuts.
Nice. What's the your preferred book format? Paperback, hardcover, ebook, or audiobook?
Paperback.
Okay, perfect. Buy or borrow books?
Bye.
One book that you wish you could read for the first time again?
Blackwater by Joyce Carol Oates.
Oh, very nice. Your preferred reading beverage, tea, coffee, or if you have anything else that you prefer?
If it's before dinner, tea. If it's after dinner, wine.
I get it. Yeah. Are you a morning reader or a night reader?
Night reader.
Are you a fast or a slow reader?
I'm a fast reader.
Hmm. And if you could recommend one book to everyone listening, what would it be?
Oh. Um, Lost Children Archive by Valeria Luiselli.
Oh, very nice. Okay, perfect. You've survived our literary rapid fire quiz.
Whew.
So you don't have
Thank
to
you.
stress anymore. We're done with that. And now we have gotten to the Q&A part of this episode. So it's a Q&A kind of from the community of kind of most popular questions that people have about working in editorial. So the first question that they have is, can I apply to, several internships, especially when it comes to Penguin Random House Canada at the same time, or is it just one internship at a time?
No, you can apply to as many as you like. And I
Okay.
think you should. Yeah, go wide.
Okay, that's perfect. People are going to be happy about that. What is it kind of like the timeline that you have internally, especially when it comes to editorial and McClelland Stewart, for contacting candidates both for like internships and entry level jobs? If they have not been, I know that because it's a big press, sometimes they say, we can't, let everyone know, but what's the timeline that if it's been a month, maybe you should move on, or what's the timeline that you have for contacting people?
Typically speaking, if we're interviewing in someone who's applied for the most recent internship, you would hear from us in about 6 weeks.
And what does I know that we've talked a little bit about the internships, but and a little bit about the interview, how to prepare for the interview, the timeline. What does the hiring look like in terms of like how many interviews do you have? There are some interviewing process that also involve having like skills tests or having like a task that you have to present for your second interview. How does that work internally?
It's usually just two interviews with
Okay.
no skill testing
Okay.
process.
Hmm.
It's really just a matter of like that cover letter,
Hmm.
and again, just making sure that someone feels like the right fit for the team.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And the last question that we have is, for someone that, it's applying to Penguin Random House, kind of specifically for those internships. Is there anything in particular that they can do for to stand out? I know that we said like a couple for kind of like more general, but when it comes to internships, I know that many people are coming, from more like educational backgrounds. Or is there anything specific that they should focus on? Maybe their passion for the house or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Hmm.
passion for the house for sure, and
Hmm.
again, like familiarity of it.
Yeah.
The last few applications that we saw that were really strong were people who like actually really like what we publish.
Hmm.
So it was both about them wanting to learn and be a part of the team,
Yeah.
but also to be a part of what it is that we're actually putting out into the world.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense. So with that, we have kind of closed up the Q&A for this episode. And one thing that I want to do before we wrap up is where can listeners follow you? Where can listeners follow McClelland Stewart? Learn more about the books that you're publishing.
Yeah, we are on Instagram. So McClelland and Stewart is on Instagram and Facebook, and it's just at McClelland and Stewart. And I'm there at Steph Sinclair.
Okay, perfect. And one small detail before we close this episode is I know that many people, especially when you're starting publishing, maybe you're struggling to find your place. Maybe after many rejections, you're feeling kind of down. You don't know if this is where you want to be. Can you share some encouraging words for kind of those young publishing people that are trying to get their foot in the door, but are kind of feeling discouraged right now?
Just don't give up. Just you got to keep trying. And there were a couple of times for me where I thought, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to make this work. But just got to stay the course and keep meeting different people and starting
Mhm.
new conversations, and things will line up.
Well, thank you so much for those words. I know that our listeners are going to appreciate it. And thank you so much for all the knowledge that you have shared in this interview, Stephanie. This has been an amazing opportunity to get to know more McClelland Stewart, but also a little bit more about being Random House Canada. And for those who want to work in editorial, thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any last words, you can share them now.
Just thank you for having me. It's been fun.
And that's it for today's episode. Next year, we'll have more incredible guests for you, so make sure you follow and subscribe so you don't miss the new episodes. You can also visit our website, publishingguide.com, for free resources and information about this season's guests. Follow us on Instagram at The Publishing Guide for updates and behind the scenes content. Leave in the comments any questions that you want to see in any future Q&As for any department. Please note that any views expressed in this podcast are personal and do not reflect the opinions of the host or guest employers. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful new year, and I'll see you in the next episode.